And we are live, so welcome everyone. So, this is my first live stream. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm trying this for the first time, and I'm glad to see that we have got some people here already. So, welcome Inverted Free Solo, welcome Lila. I see you guys in the chat here, and I cannot only start by agreeing with you. This was a phenomenal race and the best start to the 2022 season that we could possibly hope for. But now let's wait for just a few more people to join in and then let's start talking about this race. So I see a lot of more people joining, so yeah, I think we can start. So starting with this race, I think that this was the best possible start to the 2022 season that we could hope for. This was an outstanding race. I really enjoyed every single moment of it, and I think we saw a lot of very interesting things about this brand new generation of 2022 cars, and I really enjoyed the kind of racing that we saw today. I have a few pictures here on my screen right now with a few of my highlights from the race. And yeah, I see you there. What a disaster for Red Bull and McLaren. It was a disaster for those teams, but we will be talking a little later about that, about which teams performed better and worst. But yes, I agree with you that Red Bull and McLaren were definitely the teams that performed the worst. But let's start this stream by taking a look at the race results, shall we? Okay, so talking about the results, of course, that it was Charles Leclerc who won the Grand Prix, followed by Carlos Sainz for a Ferrari 1-2. And then, quite unexpectedly, Hamilton joined them in the podium. So, Lewis Hamilton in third place. Everyone was telling us that Mercedes had no business being up there, and that's true. The Mercedes had a lot of problems, and I definitely don't think that the Mercedes is a top 3 car or a top 2 car, just like we saw in this race, but they managed to get on the podium. So scoring some very important early points for Mercedes, with Hamilton and Russell in P3 and P4, and putting Mercedes second in the championship. Then we had the standout performance from Kevin Magnussen coming P5, and then Valtteri Bottas coming in at P6. What an amazing performance from Haas and from Alfa Romeo. I think that they performed very well, and we are going to talk about their teammates in just a second, but Bottas and Magnussen really outperformed their cars today, and I'm very excited to see those teams that I actually predicted to be on the back foot and on the back of the grid, for them to be fighting for P5 and P6. It's amazing. So I think that we are going to see Alfa Romeo and Haas really fighting for best of the rest, and this was really amazing. Now, when it comes to P7 and P9, we have the two Alpines of Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso. Now, this was a real surprise for me because if you guys saw my last video before where I recapped the Bahrain preseason testing, you saw that I really had a lot of issues when it comes to knowing where Alpine was on the grid, but they seem to perform very well. So a double points finish is definitely better than what I hoped for, and it's definitely not something I expected. Their car looked very unbalanced, and just as we got to free practice 1, we had the panel jumping off the Alpine, so I'm very impressed that they managed to turn it around and then turn it into a double points finish. Now then we have Yuki Tsunoda again with a points finish. He seems to go very well around Bahrain, and the points finish just like he had last year. It's a very good start for the season, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but Yuki Tsunoda is the highest performing Honda or Red Bull powertrains car by a lot, so we definitely have to talk about that because that's a major concern for the rest of the season. And then coming in at P10, I'm very impressed by Guan Yu Zhou. Now I was expecting that Zhou was not going to do this well. I saw his performances in Formula 2 and he was good, but he wasn't great, So I was expecting him to be in around the same place. I'm not going to say as Latifi, but maybe as Lance Stroll when he came to Formula 1. But no, he's much better. Zhou actually surprised me a lot. So this is very interesting to see Guan Yu Zhou score points on his debut. I think he has a very promising career ahead of him after watching his performance in this race. And he was a little bit careful. There was a point where he was fighting with Lewis Hamilton, but he then kind of backed off, which is to be expected. He's a rookie fighting against a 7-time world champion, but I'm very impressed by his performances. Then we have the other Haas of Mick Schumacher. Both Haases near the point with Kevin Magnussen in the top 5 and Mick Schumacher in P11. So amazing performance by Haas. But then we start getting into the teams that didn't quite perform as I expected. Now I see your comments in the chat. I'm going to get to them after I recap every single result from the race. So just give me a second. But talking about Lance Stroll and about Nico Hülkenberg, the Aston Martin really didn't perform well. The Mercedes power team seems to be struggling a lot. So we see McLaren back there, we see Williams back there, and we see Aston Martin back there. So even though the Mercedes engine is definitely reliable because all of those teams managed to finish the race, I'm kind of worried for them because you see that Hamilton and Russell managed to be P3 and P4, but then every single other team that's powered by the Mercedes power unit is on the back of the grid. So the bottom 6 cars on the grid that finished the race are all powered by Mercedes. Now, what this tells me is that Mercedes is having some reliability issues with... not reliability, not what I meant. I cannot edit the videos right here like I'm used to on the usual videos. This is live. So the Mercedes power units seem to be lacking performance because we see Hamilton and Russell P3 and P4, which can mean that Mercedes have a very, very good chassis, but I think that the engine is holding the performances from the Mercedes power unit teams right here at the beginning of the season at least. So we will have to see how this evolves. This can be related to the reliability issues that they were having in the back end of 2021. So they may be turning the engines down to improve their reliability, but then again the Ferrari power teams don't seem to have a need to do this, so I'm kind of worried for the Mercedes power teams. And when it comes to the when it comes to the bottom 3, I'm very worried about this. So you see Perez, Verstappen and Gasly. So Perez and Verstappen, of course, in the Red Bull. This is very worrying because Red Bull have a very, very good car. They were fighting for that win up until the last few laps, but then that Red Bull powertrain's engine just let go. And Gasly is also there. So Gasly also with the Red Bull powertrain engine is also there. So I'm very worried about this. And it's really concerning for me to see that there are 3 Red Bull / Honda powered engines in the 3 retirements, and this is something that I'm very worried about. So now seeing your messages here on the chat. So totally agree, really impressed with Alpha and Haas Space. So they were very, very impressive, and I think that the Ferrari power teams are looking very, very good, but that cannot be all engines. So Haas and Alpha, yes, were ahead of cars like the AlphaTauri, like the Aston Martin, McLaren, Williams, etc. So that has to be chassis. I was very, very impressed by their performances, and I think that we have seen a very interesting change, and we have seen something very interesting with Valtteri Bottas actually getting very close to the Mercedes, and that must have felt very, very good for him to out-qualify Russell and then to be racing in the same ballpark as the Mercedes, because he lost that Mercedes drive last year, so it must feel very, very good for him to be fighting alongside them, and honestly in a car that looks much, much more balanced than his. Okay, so looking at your next comment, so I'm very impressed by Ocon constantly outpacing Alonso, which is by no means a small feat. I completely agree. Outpacing Alonso in any car is by no means a small feat. And I'm very impressed by the kind of performances that Ocon has been getting, and especially in the back end of 2021 and now starting 2022, he looks to have the upper hand. How do you think Russell fared against Hamilton? Well, I think that it was quite a good first race for Russell. He managed to stay on the same pace as Hamilton, so he didn't fall too far behind Hamilton, and he was able to kind of keep up with him and stay with Hamilton throughout most of the race and keep up with the strategy. So I think it was a very, very good first race for Russell, but I think there's definitely room for improvement. I kind of had the feeling that Russell was going to outpace Hamilton in the first race, but that was maybe me being overly ambitious. But I think that he performed very well, and yeah, I wonder how that switch to the 10% biofuel is affecting the Mercedes engines. Well, it seems to be affecting them a lot and more than other teams. So the Red Bull engines seem to be struggling with the electric part, as it seems with Perez and with Gasly. It seems like the electronics just shut down. but Mercedes seem to be struggling with peak power. So when Mercedes is in peak power mode, they don't seem to have the same power level as Ferrari and as Red Bull. So I'm kind of worried for them. Why did most pilots go with the softs? Well, in this race we were using the hardest compounds in the range of Pirelli. So we were using the C1, C2, and C3, which are the hardest compounds in the Pirelli range. And I think that most drivers and most teams felt that the soft tires were durable enough in order to last for the entire race or to last for a very long stint. So that's why I think that we saw a lot of people going to the soft tire. We saw Lewis Hamilton getting out of the pits on that C1 hard tire, and the tire just didn't perform. And now with the tire blankets having a lesser temperature, I just think that the soft tire and the medium tire were by far the best. And I think that Pirelli could even risk bringing one step softer tires to Bahrain next year. Not yet. Do you think history is repeating itself for Red Bull with reliability issues? Well, I sure hope not, because they are the only ones that seems to be able to fight with Ferrari. And yeah, we saw 3-stopper for the most teams, and I think we will see 3-stoppers in other races, and I'm not sure that we will. So it was very interesting to see that even with the hardest compounds on the range, and with Bahrain being kind of a medium degradation track, it was very interesting to see that most teams were doing 3 stops. I was not expecting this, and if they are doing 3 stops at a track like Bahrain, I wonder what they will do in a track like Mexico, where in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, we saw Mercedes do like a 4 or 5 stop. So if they had the need to do 4 to 5 stops at Mexico in 2019 with those more durable tires, I'm wondering what we are going to see at tracks like Mexico. Okay, but now let's actually go to some of my talking points for this race. So I have a few talking points here that I would like to discuss with you guys. So firstly, we need to talk about the new regulations and which teams are going to fight for the top. And then we need to talk about the Mercedes and the Honda power units, because I feel that's where the championship is going to be decided, with the power units and with the reliability that we are seeing. And then we need to talk about Haas. And actually, let's start talking about Haas. What an amazing performance. Getting a car into the top 5 and then another right on the edge of the points. This is an amazing performance. Now, if you told me 12 months ago that Haas was going to be P5 and P11 come Bahrain, I would tell you that they are doing the best bet that they could. So, as you know, Haas bet the entire 2021 season into the development of the 2022 car, and they were always around here, around P19 to P20. So amazing to see Magnussen and Schumacher being able to bring that full performance of the car. And just one thing that I need to say, if Magnussen managed to outperform Schumacher by this much, I think that last year Haas had a car that could get into the points. I think that had they stayed with Magnussen and with Grosjean, they could have stayed in the points, probably, because just look at how far ahead Magnussen was compared to Schumacher. Of course, that Schumacher had that first lap spin with Ocon, but even still, Magnussen managed to deliver a very, very good performance, and the first points for Haas in seasons, and it was a 5th place, so amazing job for Haas. So I see that you guys have a few more messages right here. Whoa, a lot of them. Thank you for the support. Okay, so I also think most teams do not want to lose track position as the first race. They are able to run the whole race against other teams. Yes, that's. I think that we are going to see some strategy changes in the next races. Do you think that the car changes actually help to get the cars to go closer? Yes, a lot, and we are going to talk about that right after this, right after me reading the comments. Loved seeing more pit stops today. Makes the racing much more fun. Completely agree. It's amazing to see so much more pit stops and the strategy options to be that more important, and to see teams. Having the ability to explore more strategy options. So, Maru, okay. Do you think that Magnussen is better than Schumacher? Well, I definitely think that Magnussen has more experience than Schumacher. It's a little bit early to tell which one of those is going to perform best for the rest of the season, but I definitely think that Magnussen performed much better than Schumacher in this race. He has a lot more experience. Don't forget that Schumacher is only a rookie and he only started doing this last season, so it's normal that Magnussen, a driver with 5, 6, I don't know how many years, 6 years I think in Formula 1 experience, and with a lot more racing experience than Mick Schumacher, is able to outpace Schumacher in the first race, but we will have to see. So Bahrain, as you know, is a track that sits pretty well rounded when it compares to the other tracks. So as I said in my preview, we have high speed corners, medium speed corners, low speed corners, and massive straights. So I think that Bahrain is definitely a very representative track, but we will have to wait for the next few races. Okay, but now talking about the 2022 regulations, and this was one of the most outstanding aspects of this race. So the 2022 regulations saw us having one of the best races that we have seen in a long time. So you saw that on that first lap of the race. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture from it right here, that we had all of the drivers, and I don't know if you remember this, the drivers were fighting for position like we haven't seen in any other Formula 1 race. So I received a few texts that said that the drivers were performing as if they didn't know where to place the car. They were all over the place and they were able to follow each other. They were able to race into corners that we haven't seen. So we have seen a lot of re-overtaking into turn 5 and into turn 8, I think. Yes, into turn 8. So this is something that we haven't seen for a long time in Formula 1, so I definitely think that the regulations are working, and you saw that drivers were following much closer. So in the past, when cars were following each other, you always saw a big gap opened up after each corner, whereas with these regulations, and especially coming out of corners like turn 4, 5 and 6, you saw that cars were much closer, and for me this is one of the things that really stood out from this race, the way that cars were able to follow each other, even with all of the different designs that we saw from all of the teams, even with all of the different choices of tires, choices of setup, and even with the porpoising. We didn't seem to see a lot of porpoising issues except from Mercedes, but it was really good to see the cars being able to follow each other. I think that with this regulation set, we should have had this regulation set for much longer. I don't know why Formula 1 didn't bring ground effect much sooner. So I think that we are in for an outstanding era of Formula 1 because the grid is kind of compacted. So when we usually start a new regulation set, cars are usually much further apart than we saw with this regulation set. So I think that it's amazing for the cars to be this close in the first race of a brand new era. And I cannot wait to see these cars fighting at tracks like Silverstone, tracks like Monza, and let's see next week at Jeddah how they perform in a street circuit. Okay, but now I think it's time for us to talk a little bit about the fight for the top. And if you take a look at the race results, you don't get the full picture, because I think that this year the fight for the top is going to be dominated by two factors. So we are going to have to talk about reliability, and we are going to have to talk about porpoising and car setup. So I think that Ferrari, watching this first race, are by far the favorites for this year's title. I think that they managed to have a very good setup. They managed to have a very good car, and their drivers just look to be on point, and their car look very easy to drive. So definitely Ferrari doesn't concern me at all. I think that they are the title favorites coming into the first race, and then I think that the teams that are going to be behind them are Red Bull and Mercedes. So when it comes to Mercedes, I think that they have the third fastest car at the moment in Formula 1. They aren't yet up to the same standard as Ferrari or as Red Bull, but I think that they have got a reliable car, but they still have a lot of issues with porpoising, and I'm planning on doing a video explaining you exactly why Mercedes have issues. But I honestly think that setup, when it comes to having those zero side pod design, just gives them a lot less aerodynamic surface control. So when with other teams having big side pods, I think that they manage to have more aerodynamic surfaces to control the airflow, just like Red Bull, just like Ferrari. And I think that Mercedes, in trying to get away without any side pods, really missed the trick of controlling the airflow. And when it comes to Red Bull, they have the fastest package on a straight line, but their power unit really concerns me. They are 18th, 19th, and 20th with 3 DNF. So just one of the Honda cars was able, one of the Red Bull Powertrains cars was able to finish the race. And this kind of worries me because having 3 out of your 4 cars DNF in the first race of the season with such limited engine parts, with a budget cap, is really worrying. And I don't know how Red Bull will perform in the next coming races. If they will have to use another engine, or if they will have to update the power unit for reliability concerns. But either way, this involves using another engine from your pool. And when you are fighting for a championship, having a double DNF with your main team is really, really bad. Okay, so now let's take a look at your chat just once again. Let me just switch it to the chat. A lot of comments again. So I see a team here. What happened to McLaren? Really worried about McLaren. Bummer concerning Williams. Really impressed by Mercedes. Yeah, really weird seeing Toto call the Mercedes Draghi with that no side pod design. It seems like they have the worst of both worlds, with having no side pods, so no aerodynamic control, and then having a draggy car. But let's talk about McLaren, and let's talk about the teams actually. So let me analyze the team. So as we have discussed, for me the highlights of these were Ferrari, Haas, and Alfa Romeo. Then we have Mercedes and Alpine in kind of a so-and-so region. But then we have the 3 teams that disappointed me the most by far, which were Red Bull, McLaren, and Aston Martin. And since a lot of you guys are talking about McLaren, we can start to talk about them. So McLaren really disappointed me. They were by far the team that underperformed the most. So they were a team that was fighting for P3 in the championship last season, and now they came in with 14th and 15th, but only 17 cars finished the race, and they were the team that was running last for the majority of the race. So they didn't get to Q3, which was a first for McLaren in a long time, given that last year they were having pole positions and fighting for wins in some races even, and they won Monza. They had the only 1-2 of the season at Monza. So it's definitely very surprising for me to watch McLaren at the back. I was not expecting this. If you saw my predictions video, you see that I've put McLaren just behind Ferrari and Red Bull, and that I said that I was feeling very nostalgic because I thought that we were going to have a McLaren-Ferrari title fight, but not at all. McLaren were by far the team that performed worst for me when it comes to their to my expectations against the reality, and I'm very worried about them. I'm very worried about what's going to happen to McLaren, because once again Daniel Ricciardo seems to be underperforming. I know he managed to get ahead of Lando Norris, but during qualifying especially, Daniel Ricciardo just massively underperforms. And seeing Lando Norris also back there really makes me sad, because I'm not going to try and hide my allegiances. I'm a fan of transparency. I'm a massive Ferrari fan, and I'm a massive McLaren fan. I've even recorded the video with a McLaren shirt once, I think. But I'm not trying to hide my allegiances, but I think that McLaren massively underperformed. This makes me really sad. I thought that we were going to have 4 fast cars at the front in the Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren. But as with the other Mercedes power teams, it's really concerning for me to see McLaren back there. I was not expecting, and I was not ready to see McLaren on the back of the grid again. Now, I don't know if this was track specific. It sure didn't look so, because they were struggling in all of the compounds, and they were struggling in every single lap of the race. It looked like they were not competitive. They were lapped. It was heartbreaking for me to see them lapped by Ferrari when I was expecting that they were going to fight for the title. And I really don't know why this is happening. Now, I have a working theory about why the Mercedes power teams are not being able to perform. So when you look at the Mercedes works car and you have that 0 side pod design, you see that they had to package their internal cooling solution in a very, very specific way. So in order for the engine to be able to fit in that way, they had to design the whole car around that, and they had to design the cooling of the car in a very, very specific way. So I'm thinking that Mercedes power teams, the other Mercedes power teams, maybe suffering with drag issues because of the way in which they have to set up the cooling of the car, because they don't want to have that zero side pod solution, but they also need to switch the entire engine structure from what Mercedes gives them in order to be able to package the cooling with a traditional side pod design. So I'm wondering if that's what's happening here, but then again, McLaren just underperformed massively, and I'm not sure about this. Yeah, even Stroll and Albon managed to get in front of the McLarens, which is very worrying for me. I mean, McLaren were fighting with Ferrari for third in the championship, and now they are falling on pure pace behind the Williams. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening to McLaren, but as it is one of my favorite teams, I really hope that this is only a blip and they missed a massive opportunity to score points with a double DNF by Red Bull. But yeah, it's really worrying for me to see McLaren in this situation. So seeing a lot of your comments, what's up? What do you think about Red Bull will do with the problem at the end of the first race? Well, I'm honestly not sure. We haven't seen anything from Red Bull officially, and I think that we will have to wait a little bit more for a confirmation of what exactly happened. But I just think that Red Bull missed a major opportunity, and this comment just falls just falls perfectly with my team analysis here of Red Bull, because Red Bull is massively underperformed. They have the best car by far, but they seem to miss the trick with the strategic decisions. So Max Verstappen was not satisfied with his outlaps, and then the two cars just shutting down at the end of the race. I'm not exactly sure what happened with Red Bull, but I'm kind of worried for them. It was a very, very big missed opportunity for the team, and it was very worrying for me to see a team that's fighting for the title being last on the championship right now. So if you take a look at the current championship right here, you see that Red Bull Racing is actually last on the championship. I know that's only due to the alphabetical order, but it's really worrying to see the team that's supposed to be fighting for the championship with Ferrari to be 44 points, or exactly the maximum amount of points that they could be, behind them. Now this worries me a lot, and also seeing Haas in third in the championship is just amazing. Even non-Haas fans need to agree that it's amazing to see Haas in third place. But it just worries me a lot to see Red Bull down there. I think that if they are going... Last year they showed us, if you are going to fight for the title, you cannot have races like this. Last year the title went down to the wire, and imagine if this year the title is going down to the wire and then Red Bull lose it because in the first race with brand new engines they had a double DNF due to their engine. I don't know what's happening, and I really hope that Honda will help them solve this one and that they don't let this to the full Red Bull powertrain team, because they are still setting up. But I just hope that Red Bull has a solution for this in the works, because they cannot afford to have a double DNF. And just a little side note about Red Bull, and I know I'm going to get a little bit of hate for this. Verstappen seemed to be very nervous during the entire race, so he seemed to be yelling at the radio a lot, and he seemed very nervous with his hot laps, and especially when he started having issues with his steering. And I think that Verstappen really needs to calm down a little bit if he's going to win races, because you saw that Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, Russell were all very calm even in the face of adversity, but Verstappen really seemed to be very, very angry at the car and at the team, and that's not something we saw last year. So we are already seeing some signs of things not being so good at Red Bull as they were last year. Now, talking a little bit about Ferrari, Haas and Alfa Romeo, you see a pattern right here, right? Ferrari is powered by Ferrari power units, Haas Ferrari and Alfa Romeo Ferrari are also powered by Ferrari power units. And this is a massive pattern. We see that Ferrari has come from having the best power unit in 2019 to the worst in 2020 to now having the best again in 2022. Now this is amazing to see, and something that makes me have more hope for the Ferrari power teams than others is the fact that, I don't know if you remember last year, but Ferrari has a massive upgrade on their power unit side on the electrical part. But this is not new. They have been testing this electric part of the power unit in the 2021 car, so they already have a lot of reliability data about this part of the engine. So it's amazing for me it's amazing for them to be where they are with all of the data, and you see that reflected directly in the standings of all of the Ferrari power teams. So you see Ferrari in first, then Haas scoring 10 more points then with Haas with 10 more points than in both seasons combined, and then Alfa Romeo just 1 point behind. And for me, we are going to see Haas and Alfa Romeo fight on the top of the midfield with maybe Alpine and AlphaTauri if they manage to get their reliability together. And this is amazing. This is amazing to watch. This is a turn that I did not expect to see. Now, I told you that Haas had one of the most developed cars and one of the cars that was going to be fighting for the midfield, but I was not expecting them to be fighting at the top of the midfield like this. I'm going to be buying some Haas merch there, I committed, and I think it's amazing for them to be fighting where they are fighting. Okay, let's take a little other look at the chat. Okay, so I bet Danny Rick ends paired up with Colton Herta if Andretti gets a team in 2024. That's actually a very, very good shot, because I'm not with the kind of performances that Danny Rick is having. I know he outperformed Lando, but you need to take a look at the weekend as a whole and not just a race result. With the ways that Danny Rick is at McLaren, I really would be surprised if McLaren stays with him if he continues to perform in this way. And Danny Rick in an American team paired with Colton Herta would be amazing. And I've got a video on why Formula 1 is not letting Andretti join the sport. So yeah, definitely that would be an amazing lineup. Okay, McLaren shows that the time to develop the car is definitely not the only thing that's needed to prepare a winning car. Said though, I would love to have them up there. So do I. And definitely that shows it, because Red Bull and Ferrari were second and third, or I mean Ferrari was fifth for most of last year, so they had a lot of developing time, but Red Bull didn't. And Red Bull invested a lot of time into their 2021 car. They were bringing new front wings to the last race of the season. So definitely, I think that it really shows that you don't need the most developing time. You just need to be efficient. That's a really interesting point about the Merc. They are using 3D printed intercoolers, aren't they? Well, I'm not sure about that. I heard that they were using some space age technology and that they were partnering with aerospace agency in order to produce some very out of this world, literally, intercoolers. And they might be, and the way in which they are packaging them may just be the reason why they are managing to be in front of all of the other Mercedes power teams. And as you know, in Formula 1, that's why all of the teams, and that's why Red Bull has made such a big push in order to have their own factory engines, is because in Formula 1 you really need to be able to develop the whole package and not just the car chassis in order to win races and championships. And that's why you see Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes at the front and not McLaren, Williams or Aston Martin, because you really need to be able to tell your engineers and to have them all working in the same direction and to have them develop a car around the package. But you also need to be able to you need also to be able that your aerodynamic engineers can have input on how the engine is designed, or your chassis engineers on how the engine is packaged. And if you are a works team such as Mercedes or Ferrari, you can do that. You can tell, oh, the engine is, we need to make some changes to the engine shape in order to make it fit better here, or adapt the chassis a little bit because we want to try something new. Whereas if you have a team like McLaren, well, they just buy the package from Mercedes, so they cannot make so many adjustments. Okay, so more comments. Do you think Mercedes and the other Mercedes powered cars will gain performance? Well, it's very hard to tell. I think that it's a bit too late for that right now, honestly. I think that they are very far behind. Now, something that I don't want to fall into, and it's a trap that I've fallen into before, is that I don't want to evaluate the performance of the cars based on the first race. I want to wait a little bit more. We need to wait until we have seen 5 to 6 races before we can have a full pecking order. And I honestly don't think that the way in which teams are positioned right now is the full pecking order. This doesn't tell the full picture. So for me, based on the first race results, it would be Ferrari, then Red Bull, then Mercedes, then probably Haas, yes, then AlphaTauri, then Alfa Romeo, Alpine, and then McLaren, Aston Martin, Williams, and that would be it. That would be the pecking order that I would have right now, and that has nothing to do with the order in which they are. The only teams that I think are about on the same place where I would put them is Ferrari, Mercedes, and Haas. But in the end of the day, you gotta be in it to win it. You gotta finish the races in order to win a championship. There's a very famous saying in Formula One. You got to finish first you have to finish, and Ferrari definitely showed that, but most of all Mercedes showed that with a reliable package. Even if not the fastest car, you can win it, you can win the races. Okay, I was hoping Alonso would have a capable car of the occasional podium, but Alpine appeared to be almost in the same spot as last season. Yeah, Alpine seemed to be in about the same spot as last season. No real car evolution, no real gains. They seem to be in about the same spot, and they are definitely looking better than a lot of the Mercedes power teams. So I would not be amazed if we see Alonso getting a few podiums. More comments. I do not think it is by chance that Ferrari has no cooling issues and has the largest sidepod air inlets. Clearly, the car size trimming obsession has caught a lot of teams off guard. Yes, that's a major point. A lot of teams seem to be trying, and that's a point that I've made in my preseason review of the Barcelona testing, that you cannot just cut the side pods out of the car. You cannot undervalue the cooling and how you are going to make that engine stay alive for 7 to 8 races. And we see a lot of teams having issues with cooling. We need to have reliable engines, and it's worth it to have a bigger side pod if that's going to make your engine last longer. Max will be on pole on Saudi. He definitely performed very, very well on Saudi, and that Red Bull car looks to have a very good power unit, so I would not be amazed by that. Ted's notebook offered Red Bull struggled with the fuel pump. Okay, can you elaborate on a little bit? I haven't seen Ted's notebook. Can you tell me if that was on Max's car, Checo's car, or on Gasly's car? If you could tell me that, please, it would add a lot to the conversation. I think Max's suspension was damaged in third pit stop. Okay, interesting, because of the heavy tires. I think he was having issues with the power steering, wasn't it? How did Nico Hülkenberg with little Aston Martin experience past Lance Stroll? Well, you see that in the race results, Stroll actually performed better than Leclerc. But in qualifying, Nico Hülkenberg outperformed Lance Stroll. So did Lando Norris outperform Daniel Ricciardo. Alex Albon also outperformed Nicolas Latifi. Now, when it comes to how Hülkenberg outperformed Lance Stroll, I don't want to get into a rant, but I think that the answer is pretty much obvious. I don't think that Lance Stroll is a good driver. I don't think that with the amount of time that he has been in Formula 1, and I'm going to trigger a lot of people talking about Stroll in this way, and just one thing out of the way, I think that Papa Stroll, Lawrence Stroll, did a very, very good thing for Formula 1 in saving Force India, in turning into Aston Martin, and in having a team that brings such a big name to Formula 1, and they are even investigating having their own engines. So very, very good. But Lance Stroll, I just think that he is not up to the par. And even though Nico Hülkenberg came out last in the race, I think that the fact that Hülkenberg, with little to no experience with this car, managed to outqualify Lance Stroll, well, it just speaks volumes about the kind of performance that could be in that car had they stayed with Checo, had they had Vettel in the car today, or were they to have another driver. I think that the results just speak for themselves. Okay, so another more comment. The thing that worries me most about Aston Martin is that their car already looks pretty developed. Yes, so that's a very good point. Talking about regulations and talking about the regulations and talking about teams like Ferrari and Aston Martin and a little bit Red Bull also. So whereas with teams as McLaren, Mercedes and some other teams, including, I had it here, so Alpine, they have a lot of margin for development, whereas teams such as Ferrari and as Aston Martin seem to be locked into a development path, and I do not see how they could make this a lot of changes to their car. So in the case of Ferrari, that doesn't concerns me because they have a race winning package capable of producing 1-2 results and fighting for championships, so that doesn't concern me. In the case of Aston Martin, it does. So what I mean by this is that if you take a look, and we have a few pictures of the cars right here, if we have a look at the Ferrari and at the Aston Martin, you see that those cars are pretty much, the side pods are pretty much up to the shape that they are the side pods are pretty much in the shape that they are going to be for the rest of the season. So the whole car was designed around that side pod idea, and the side pods seem to be pretty fixed. There's no way to really change them a lot when it comes to cooling. Now, a lot of teams also, and every single team has options to improve their floor, which would solve porpoising and which would mean that the cars would immediately perform better. But when it comes to these teams, I think that they don't have a lot of room for change the overbody structures of the cars. So I'm kind of worried to see how they are going to perform. Okay, so Mick Schumacher, Lance Stroll, and Latifi don't deserve a Formula 1 seat at the moment, IMO. Yeah, I can definitely agree with one of those drivers, maybe two. I think that Mick Schumacher still deserves a seat. Do you see Bottas outperforming Russell this season? Well, what a smug face that would give to Valtteri Bottas. And I definitely expect that he will be able to outperform Russell for 1 or 2 races for this season. And then we are going to see the return of the "to whom it may concern" message on the radio, and I will really like to see that coming. An Italian supplier provided all the teams with the fuel pump, part of the new cars, using fixed cost parts, but there must have been issues because the FIA allowed teams test extra testing of that part. Very weird. It's a very weird that if that's a standardized part, how only the Red Bull cars have failed. Okay, so before we go, I want to talk a little bit about porpoising. So, as you know, porpoising from, you may remember from my previous videos, but if you are new to the channel, I can show, whoops, we have an infinite loop around here. I can show you here, I can show you in one of my videos what porpoising is like. There we are. I can show you porpoising, so let's take a look at my video. Where is it? Okay, on porpoising. I hope that the sound is working okay. But yeah, porpoising is this thing, right? Porpoising is this phenomena right here where the car just goes. I'm looking for an animation, I'm sorry. This is the okay, so this is porpoising, when the car goes up and down and up and down and up and down. And this is one of the things that will affect most of the cars on the grid right now. So I just wanted to show you that little video. Porpoising is definitely one of the things that's going to affect the teams, and it seems to be affecting Mercedes the most. Mercedes seem to be suffering a lot from porpoising, and when it comes to the other Mercedes power teams, they seem to be limited by top speed due to the power unit and due to the power unit cooling. But when it comes to the Mercedes works team, they also seem to be suffering a lot from porpoising. Now, this comes to speak a lot about their car design and the way in which they have their cooling setup. I think that the way in which they have the car design with so much air going on top of the floor really affects their porpoising issues. And there's a tech journalist from motorsports.com called Matthew Summerfield. You may know his work, and he told us that the floor from the Mercedes definitely doesn't look like a final version. It definitely looks like it needs work. So I'm expecting to see Mercedes bring a brand new floor that will hopefully fix porpoising, and then we will unleash the full potential of the Mercedes, because that car to be in P3 and P4 definitely is a fast car, and definitely is a car that with a little bit of work may be able to reach the top step of the podium somewhere this season. And honestly, even though I'm not personally a massive Lewis Hamilton fan, don't get me wrong, and please don't confuse that with not admiring Lewis Hamilton, because I really admire the quality of driver that he is and the outstanding champion that he is. and I'm not trying to take praise away from him. I'm just not a fan. Just like you may not be a Williams fan, you may not be an AlphaTauri fan. I'm not a Hamilton fan personally. I'm, as I said, a Ferrari and McLaren fan. I'm hoping that he can keep up that streak where he wins a race in every single season, because that's just such a good record for him to have, and such an outstanding record to mark the outstanding driver that he is. I think that I want to see that, so I'm really hoping that Mercedes can fix those problems, because now that we don't have McLaren in the title fight as I hoped for, we need to have someone to fill in for them. Okay, so more comments. Mick and Lance should have a seat in Formula 1, Latifi does not. And I like Latifi, but the fact that Piastri doesn't have a Formula 1 ride is embarrassing. Well, I could have a 2-hour stream about Piastri, and I could have a 2-hour stream about how outrageous it is that he is not in Formula 1. We need Oscar Piastri in Formula 1, and you have triggered me right now. So thank you for making this stream a little bit longer. Oscar Piastri is a driver that deserves and needs to be in Formula 1 right now. We see what George Russell is doing in that Mercedes and did in that Williams. We saw the race winner today, Charles Leclerc, winning a race from pole and dominating the race with his Ferrari. And what do these two drivers have in common with Piastri? Well, they won Formula 2, Formula 3 and the Formula Renault Championship straight, and in three years in a row, and in their rookie season. Why is this driver not in Formula 1? I think that this speaks to a much fundamental problem about Formula 1, and I can have a live stream or a video talking about that problem if you guys want me to, so definitely let me know if you guys want to see that. It's definitely something that I'm very intrigued about, because I think that the best way for me to talk about the races to you guys is by doing live streams like this. I'm enjoying this a lot, and then we need a video on making videos on fundamental problems with Formula 1, and that's one of them for me. I think that Oscar Piastri not being in Formula 1 is honestly outrageous for me. Okay, so let's see, we have something new around here. Awesome analysis so far, thank you very much. Yeah, just want to say awesome work on your first live recap. Thank you very much. I was a bit nervous about the first live stream, because usually when I'm recording the videos, I'm not this smooth. I know that I'm not being the most smooth right now, but I'm not this smooth. Normally, for saying the same thing, I need to say it 5 times and then edit it to a smaller version. So it's definitely going on very well. Okay, so I would definitely enjoy a video on Formula 1 opportunities. Okay, we'll see that. I think that Ferrari designed the car to be easy to adapt. The hollow side pods give them downforce when the floor is higher than other teams on the road. Yes, this can prevent porpoising. They seem to have... Ferrari seem to have followed a path of having a car that's easy to drive and not a car that's picky. So I told you in my season preview that the the Mercedes is a diva of a car again, and has been for the last few years. So Mercedes always design a car that on the wind tunnel, man, that car should have outstanding performance and outstanding downforce, but the setup window is just very narrow when compared to the Ferrari. So Ferrari and Red Bull, for that matter, looked very smooth, very easy to drive cars with very minimal issues. And I want to talk about one more thing about Ferrari before we go. While the Mercedes really seems to be a car that's has a very narrow setup window, and Ferrari definitely built a car that focused on being easier to drive and more adaptable to most racing situations, whereas Red Bull whereas Mercedes have built a car that's very tricky to set up, and that's why I think that Mercedes, sorry, I keep mixing them up. I think that Mercedes is going to be one of the cars that's going to have most difficulties around solving porpoising. Okay, the thing that I wanted to talk to you guys regarding Ferrari was the tire management. So if you take a look, and let me see just very quickly if I can find this image right here. So let me go to the Pirelli Twitter, and I know you guys aren't watching this, but let me see if I can find it. Okay, here it is. Let me share my screen with you guys. Let's make sure we don't get into another this one. Okay, so here is the chart that Pirelli brings every single race after the race, taking a look at what tires drivers bring. And you see that Ferrari managed to do 15 laps on the softs and then 16 laps on the softs right here. Or with Carlos, they managed to do from lap 14 to 33. And with the exception of some drivers here at the end of the race, but it's normal for these last stints to be longer, such as Schumacher. You see here, he did a lot of laps on the soft. But I'm focusing on the drivers here at the top of the race, and I'm including Verstappen and Perez in this because they were fighting for the win up to the very end. And it was very interesting for me that Ferrari was able to make their, and Mercedes also for that matter, I'm seeing that, no, Mercedes, no, I was confusing. So you see that Ferrari was able to keep their tires working for longer than any other team, and they were able to extend the tire life. So back in 2018, I think that's what the last time that Ferrari fought for a title. Wow. Back in 2018, Ferrari had a massive problem against Mercedes. So Ferrari had the fastest car, but then it just chewed through his tires, it destroyed tires, and I think that's one of the things that really hurt their chances in 2018, that alongside poor management, but we'll get to that some other day. But I think that this year Ferrari has a car that's very nice on his tires, and that's why, unlike most of the field who did a soft to medium to hard stint, so you can see that most cars here, such as Ocon, Alonso, you have here Ricardo, Norris, Gasly, they were all doing very aggressive stints, and even Verstappen and Perez, they were doing very aggressive stints, whereas Ferrari seemed to have things under control. Now they almost, and this is something I forgot to talk about, they almost lost the race due to an undercut during the first pit stop stage, so I really think that they need to pay more attention to that Red Bull power unit, because that car is very, very fast, and it seems that with the way in which and I forgot to talk about this, this year we don't have the tire warmers as warm as last year, and you saw this when Hamilton was leaving the pits. He had a lot of issues. He had a big slide leaving the pits, and this just shows you that the tires come out of the pits very, very cold, and this means that the outlaps are very slow. So undercut is definitely going to be much, much more powerful than in previous years, because if a driver pits one lap before you, once he reaches you, even if you are close, just like we saw with Leclerc and with Verstappen, you see that the driver that has one lap hotter tires has a big, big advantage. Now, that Ferrari, just to finish up, that Ferrari Red Bull fight was just outstanding. We had 3 laps of back-to-back racing, and talking about the regulations, well, in 2019, in 2020, in 2021, ever since 2017, really, we saw cars, we called an amazing race what we saw from Bahrain last year, which was Max Verstappen chasing Lewis Hamilton for the entire race and making one overtake attempt, failing at that overtake attempt, or succeeding but outside of track limit, and then nothing more. Whereas this year we saw something amazing. So from lap 17, 18 and 19 up until the Verstappen lockup, we saw Leclerc and Verstappen being able to follow each other, being able to overtake, re-overtake, overtake, re-overtake through corner 1 to corner 4, and we saw an amazing battle that lasted for a lot of laps, that didn't see, and this is crucial, that didn't see the tires of either driver getting destroyed up until that Verstappen lockup, but that's a lockup, that's normal to destroy tires. And when it comes to this compared to the previous regulations, it was very, very interesting to see. Now, I saw a question up here a few minutes ago at the beginning of the stream that I thought was going to okay, why did Max start with used tires? Okay, if you know, and I don't know if that was here on the Pirelli website, but I think it was, so I can take a look at this. Okay, let's take a look at something. Let me just show you one more thing. I know we are going pretty much off topic, but this is the end of the stream, so I want to show you guys a lot of things that even if they are off topic. So each driver has a certain tire allocation, and these are the amount of tire that each driver has available for them to use during the race. And if we take a look at here at Verstappen, he had three used soft tires and only one new soft tire. So that's why I started on that used soft tire. So that's why he started in one of his three used soft tires, because he wanted to keep that fresh soft tire for the second stint, and that's why his undercut worked so well. And honestly, once I saw that decision, I was worried that he was going to get past Leclerc, but fortunately the Ferrari strategy seemed to work this time, seemed to work very well, and Leclerc just managed to hang on there and provoke Verstappen to have a lockup, which then equalized both of the tires. But that's why, so Leclerc opted to start on the new soft tire in order to have that best starting performance, which I think was worth it with hindsight. But once I saw that both Sainz and Verstappen were starting on used set of tires, I was pretty much worried for them. And you saw that by starting in this kind of tire. And this is a very interesting, you should follow Pirelli on Twitter or on Instagram to see these things, because it's very interesting to see the tire allocations before each race starts in order to understand better the tire strategy, especially when in this year teams are going to have more stops. I think we definitely learned that more stops are now more effective, even if the pit stop times are slower. And I think also another thing that was very interesting was that teams opted to go all for the soft tire, so that Q2 tire rule is gone and dusted. It's not coming back again. And I think that it's very interesting to see that all of the teams opted to starting with the softs, except for McLaren. But the less we speak about McLaren's race, the less my feelings get hurt. So let's not talk about McLaren. So, whoops, once more. So that's a very interesting thing to see the way in which teams are using their tire allocation. Okay, a few more messages from the chat, and then I think it is time for us to go. Okay, so a very interesting debate going on here about the ways in which the side pods are used to help create downforce. Yes, they shape the airflow that actually gives downforce. So the side pods, in order, let me intervene a little bit here. So the side pods, all of the side pods do contribute to having downforce, and they contribute to having downforce not by directly generating downforce, but by shaping the air in order to go to other parts of the car that increases downforce. So for instance, by guiding the air to the beam wing or to the top part of the diffuser, they help to increase the efficiency of the diffuser or of the beam wing or even of the rear wing in some cases, and that's how they help to create downforce. But these cars once again are more dependent on the floors than any other generation of cars. And I thought it was very interesting to see cars sliding around. So for the first time in years, we are seeing cars sliding and fighting all over the track. So this was an amazing race. And let me know if there's anything that you would like me to discuss for the Bahrain Grand Prix. I think we have covered pretty much everything. We have taken a look at the teams that perform better and worse. We have taken a look at the engine, at the championship standings. We have taken a look at the race results, and of course that this race result is the championship order right now. Again, very worried for Red Bull. I definitely didn't expect to see them both back there. I definitely didn't expect to see Verstappen, Perez, and Gasly, which were all in point scoring positions, be at the back. And honestly, I must add that in a personal note, I'm gutted for Verstappen. It was very, very bad for him. He deserved that podium. I know that not all of you are going to be Verstappen fans, and a lot of you are going to be happy to see Lewis Hamilton on the podium, but you got to admit that Verstappen drove a very, very good race, and that he or Perez were worthy of a podium. Now, I think that Ferrari definitely deserve that one too that they got, and I'm not Italian, I'm Portuguese, but it was very good to see back the Italian national anthem this year when it comes to Ferrari. It was very, very good to see them back where they belong, in the top step of the podium. And now let's only hope that Red Bull and Mercedes join them, because Red Bull in this race was just used to give me heart attacks with their strategy, but then at the end they just pulled out of the race. But Mercedes, I really want to see you, even though for me, and I don't know if there's a very cool podcast about Formula One. That's the Missed Apex podcast. So go give them a listen if you guys enjoy Formula One. In there, the host calls Ferrari the Death Star because they won for a lot of years in the beginning of the 2000s with Michael Schumacher. Well, for me, Mercedes is the Death Star because when I started watching Formula One, I started watching in 2008, 2009, more seriously. But yeah, for me, I don't quite. So that's why I started liking Ferrari with Felipe Massa fighting against Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Raikkonen. So that's why I started liking Ferrari and McLaren. Those were the top teams as I started watching. But then came the Mercedes dominant years, and during those Mercedes dominant years, my favorite driver, which back then was Sebastian Vettel, didn't get to win. So for me, Mercedes were the Death Star, but they belong in the front of Formula One. They are a massive and well-polished operation, and I think that it's just a matter of time before we are seeing Hamilton, Russell, Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, and Perez fighting for wins. And I definitely think that for the time being, Ferrari have the fastest, the best driver lineup. So that's very interesting, definitely something that we want to see. Okay, so I see some more familiar names. So Crane, sorry if I mispronounced that, said great race, inverted free solo with the engine freeze coming up. I bet the Honda pushed stuff as far as possible. Yes, I agreed, because they are only allowed reliability fixes, but don't forget that the reliability fixes require them to have a new power unit, and they only have 3 power units available. And I don't think from testing that they were expecting this. And I think that when it comes to having another spec of the engine, that involves having another engine. They have 3 engines available, so they are not going to have this fix ready on time for the next engine swap. So they are going to have to run at least 14 races with this spec of engine, and that worries me a lot, because even though the Honda is by far the most powerful engine, well, what's it worth being powerful if you don't finish the race? And talking about the race, did you guys feel that the race took way too long? Like, not way too long, I'm not complaining about Formula 1 races, but the race was longer than usual, right? I'm not dreaming around here. So I think that the race took a longer time, and I think that just speaks a little bit about some of the effects of the 2022 regulations. We had a much better race than last year. Last year was epic. This was better. Fight me in the comments. But this just speaks volumes to, we don't need the faster cars available in order to have good racing. We need to have cars that are able to follow each other without the tires destroying, with cars that are not affected by dirty air as much, and cars that are able to fight lap in, lap out through twisty sections, through street circuits, through tracks like Monza where you have slipstream. I think that we need cars that are able to fight in all of these conditions, and that's what I think that we got this season. So that's been really it for this stream. So that's it for my analysis of the 2022 Bahrain Grand Prix. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. I really enjoyed doing a live stream instead of trying to rush a video just to be one of the first YouTubers to post a video about the Bahrain Grand Prix. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed, and I see inverted free solo. That was really fun. Psyched for the next week's live stream. I'll try to have a live stream next week. You'll know by midweek if I'm going to be able to have a live stream next week. I will tell you, and I will warn you. So don't forget to subscribe and enable those notifications in order to know when I'm going live. And if you guys want to know more about when I'm going live or have some, of course, my dogs start barking. They didn't bark for an hour. They are barking now. Just give me a second. Sorry for that. I really like doing the live stream. I really like being able to interact with you guys. Yes, I have 3 of them dogs, so it's really likely that during these live streams you are going to hear a lot of them. Thank you, amazing first live. I really enjoyed doing this live stream. Thank you very much for tuning in. It's really good for me to be able to interact. As you guys really brought a lot to the discussion with comments on aerodynamics, on the Ted's notebook comment right then with the fuel pumps. I think that this just brings a lot to the table, and I really enjoyed doing during live streams. What do you do to the dog? Well, I rather not speak about it. Okay, so hello from California. Wow. American fans here. Wow, very good to see you from all over the world. You gotta show us the dogs next time. I will try to show you the dogs without having them bark all over the stream. I will show them. But yeah. Thank you very much for tuning in. I think that's been it for this live stream. If you guys enjoyed, definitely subscribe to the channel and enable notifications. And if you guys want to leave, calling Pete, if you guys want to leave your suggestions for videos that you'd like to see during the week, I think please leave them in the comments on below. Hello from London. Wow, all over the world, you guys. Amazing to see. Boston. Wow. Okay, before we end, let me know where you're from. But let me know what videos you want to see on the channel for this week. I was going to do a video on how worried I was for Haas, but I think that that's not a very good topic to do right now because they were P5 and P11. So, wow, Alverca, Bosnia, wow, a lot of countries. Great first live, thank you very much. Yeah, so that's it. So let me know what videos you want to see during this week. I'm definitely going to do that video. India, wow, all over the world, you guys, amazing to see. It really makes me happy to see you guys from all over the world. So let me know what videos you guys want to see. I'm definitely going to do that Piastri video, maybe not this week. I'm going to do that Haas video, but maybe on another turn. And let me know if there's any video ideas that you'd like me to explore, but I'm definitely going to do another video for this week, maybe a preview of the 2022 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix at Jeddah, because I have a few interesting updates about the track, including a few track layout changes. But thank you very much for tuning in from all over the world. That's been it for my first stream. Thank you for all the love. Thank you for all the comments. It's been amazing to chat live with you guys. And if you guys want to send me messages, I have my email address, my Twitter, and my Instagram. So all of them are in the comments on below. You can leave the comments. You can leave comments in the video. And please don't forget to like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed. But that's been it for this live stream. I really hope you guys enjoyed. And for me, for this week, for the 2022 Bahrain Grand Prix live review and analysis, that's been it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.